Oh, this is being recorded. Maybe someone heard us and said, "Y'all better."
Well, I figured I'm testing this out. I better record it to see how it works. Um,
Okay.
Now, while we're waiting for Roxana, because I just sent her an email as to what we were doing, where we were going. Let's see, what do we have? We were talking about her recruiting and her checklist. Well, while we're waiting for Roxana, does anybody have any good sales that they'd like to report?
I'm here, Sam.
Oh, there's Roxana.
Well,
Hello,
yes.
Roxana.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Hi.
Okay, so Roxana, we
Yes,
were
Sam.
last time we were here. We were talking about your checklist. Is
Mhm.
that what we're still on?
Well, I like to give an update of where I am right now. I've had 4 interviews with 4 different potential associates, and I found someone who has all the different qualities and requirements that I wanted to have. Someone, she's from the States. She's been living 10 years in St. Martin. She worked her way up from being an administrative clerk to becoming the director of an insurance company. She is actually retired, works for the fun of it, and has the time and has the money. And the other ones, there is one more person in St. Martin that I like, but she has a lot on her plate. She's also um, very, she's pretty young. So, all in all, I think this other person probably is the best candidate. And the person I met here in Curacao, I got very good um, information about her. The person that referred her is a client. She's a human resource manager, and they work together. However, she spoke a long time. At some point, I was tired of listening, and so I have a big question mark there. So don't think that. So far, it doesn't feel good. And so now my next step is to read all the different questionnaires. I did send to them the form LMI and you, so they have all completed it. Actually, Sharon, the person in St. Martin I would like to work with, she already completed it. She sent it quickly, immediately after I sent it to her. The other ones took a little bit more time. Actually, I'm still waiting for 1 or 2 more. And so now for this weekend, I have planned time to discuss with Stanley the investment, go to the contract that we need to discuss with the lawyer, decide how much the commission in St. Martin would be, because that's a little bit different than if they're here. And take time to read all these questionnaires attentively. That's where I'm at.
Did you give a deadline for the one that didn't hand in theirs yet?
No, but I actually use this also as a way to see how interested they are, because if you're going to take a long time, like Sharon immediately, I spoke to her the day before yesterday, and immediately she sent it and had a few questions and already asked me if there is someone in St. Martin working, because she went online and she saw that Luciane is the contact person for St. Martin, and she thought there was already someone. So, to me, the fact that she was so fast gives me already an idea of how interested she is. The other person that took a long, long time, I didn't even know if she had received it, so I had to call her and find out if she had received it. To me, already that person tells me a little bit that it's not so high on her priority list, because she could at least have letting me know that she had received it, and she didn't do that and took her more than a week to reply.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Roxana? Nobody has any questions?
Well, this is Pete, and just to get the conversation going, one of the things that, when we work with our customers, our clients, we try to help them in the areas that they need help, and one of them is the hiring process. And one of the things that I've experienced throughout the years is that organizations don't invest enough time and effort in the hiring as they should, because that's one of the most important things they do. And so I just think we have to do the same thing. If we want to recruit some people, we need to be willing to invest the time and effort to do that. And one of the things that I am doing and focusing on is centers of influence. And I've made me a list of potential centers of influences that I am calling and telling them what I want. And I've had a bunch of centers of influences on just for sending me clients, and I also have in recruiting people. But I've started adding some, and one new center of influence that I added just last week, within 3 days, recommended someone that I've already set a meeting with to meet with as a potential associate. And but then when I get someone interested, I've got to be willing to put forth the time and effort to make sure that I invest the right time and effort to recruit that person to make sure I get a good one.
Pete, I have a question. So when you say invest time, can you break that down and explain exactly how do you invest time, and what are the things you're looking for, and how many interviews do you have? What makes you decide that you want to work with a person?
Well, the way I do it is in my first meeting, and especially if that's the main purpose of the meeting, to determine if to see if they're interested in the work that we do. And so I visit with them, and I spend a minimum of an hour with them on my first visit with them, just trying to evaluate their attitudes and their character and all of those things that you look for. And if they have an interest, then I would say, well, I want you to think about this a little bit, and let's schedule another meeting to get together if I want to meet with them another time. Sometimes you can determine right off the bat that you don't want them. Mm-hmm. And so I schedule another meeting with them, and then I go through the process of telling them what it takes to be an associate of LMI and Morell and Associates. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, Pete, you look like you're having so much fun. We'd like to do what you do." And I said, "Well, let's talk about it." And when they find out what we really do, sometimes they're not as interested. For example, I can hire a bunch of facilitators, but I really don't need a lot of facilitators. The people that I hire, I want them to do the whole thing. I want them to sell and facilitate and become a product of the product. And I just, by my face-to-face interviews, try to get that across to them and see if they have what I think is the potential to be in a product of the product. And if they really, if depending on their interest, if they really show an interest, then I go through the process of saying, well, here's how you get in business for yourself and become an associate of Morell and Associates. You invest in an open enrollment class and you come through the class. And as you're going through the class, we'll get to know each other better, and then you determine at what point you really think you want to become an associate of mine. And the reason I want them to come through class, if they're really good at it, I mean, if they're serious about it, I want them to see the benefits from the very first session to the last session, what we can do to help people. And if they're really serious about wanting to, that they care about people and want to help people, and they can see the improvement, then I spend more time with them and start, in addition to them just coming through the class, then I start spending more time with them, and we talk seriously about signing an agreement to where they'll be a sales associate. And what I tell them is that in addition to the little bit you invested in this class, you'll get about $100,000 worth of benefit by working with me and me showing you our process and how we sell it and how we facilitate it. It's nothing, there's no silver bullet there.
Okay, you just mentioned that you have them invest in a program, so they will pay the same price that the regular client would pay. They pay for the program, correct?
Absolutely. And the reason I do that is before, when I was trying to recruit people, I'd let them come in for nothing. And if they don't have anything invested, they've got to have something invested. I'm offering them the opportunity to literally be in business for themselves, to be an entrepreneur. And for a couple of $1,000, that's all it costs them to get in business. I provide the conference room, I buy the product and everything, and I pay them a really good commission on the gross amount of what we sell the programs for. And I say, where else can you go in business for yourself for $2,000?
Okay, and then in addition to paying for the program, what else do you ask them to invest in? Because you will be training them. They need to go to the sales and the facilitation certification. You will be meeting with them regularly to help them grow and get better at what they do. What else do you charge them in addition to the price of the program?
That's all I charge them, but they are responsible for everything else. They're responsible for developing their business cards. They're responsible for putting together a portfolio, a presentation manual, as I call it, and any other expenses that they have. They have their own. Basically, they're a contract employee, and they provide they pay for all their other expenses, but I pay them a good, and depending on the individual, I don't just pay all of them the same thing. Depending on their investment in time and effort and money is how much time and effort I will invest in them.
Okay, so basically it's the amount of the price for the program, that's it, and then the rest they pay for all the rest, like
they're basically an independent contractor, basically what they are.
Mm-hmm.
But in our agreement, they have to understand our values and our culture, because they're representing you. And if you send someone out there that's representing you using your name, and they foul up, that's a risk that we take. So that's why I don't hire very many. I just when I get what I think a real good one is, I'll take a risk with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there anyone else on the call that does it differently, that require an additional investment, or maybe have one amount that covers various expenses?
Remember, Roxanne, I don't have a lot of people working for me, anything. However, have had two rookies of the year over the period of years. I've hired in a lot of people throughout the years, and some of them been so good that people hire them out from under me. But that's all right. I'd rather have a good one for 2 years than a mediocre one for longer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other feedback for Roxana?
Well, Sam, I like to mention this because it's interesting. When I was doing the interviews, especially with this person that I think would be the best candidate, I could see my fear creep in because she mentioned to me that she actually was able after retirement to achieve 2 masters, and that she has worked her way up. And so I had this thought, well, maybe I need to let Lucian handle this. And I'm just saying this because I thought it was interesting to see how I was feeling insecure.
Okay, is that because she has 2 masters?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Say, Sam.
Yeah.
Let me get choked up here. Pete brought to my mind a good question. He's using a strong independent contractor model. It sounds to me, and is that the same as an associate model, or are there differences? And what would you say the differences are between an associate and independent contractor?
Your associates are independent contractors.
Oh,
Unless you're paying them a salary, then they're an employee.
okay. I thought there might be something else that
Nope.
would separate. So I was just questioning when I have had a few associates, how much independence did I encourage in them? And my answer was thinking to myself, not so much.
Well, there are certain things that they would be a benefit to them to follow through. Okay, if you look at an insurance agents, they're independent contractors. If you look at real estate people, they're independent contractors.
Yep.
Okay, but they have to follow certain, items that to be able to be a part of that office. Okay, but they're still independent contractors. We were talking about it, and I mentioned it during the session that I did. Here locally, we have Mr. Reuter or something like that, which is a plumbing organization. All their, quote, technicians, because they're not plumbers anymore, they're technicians. All their technicians are independent contractors.
Mm-hmm.
And are paid a portion of the billings, just like any other independent contractor. Harley Davidson mechanics, for the most part, are independent contractors.
You know what? As you remind me of those folks, what I remember is that the ones who actually were able to become honest to gosh independent, they were the ones who became successful and were the key. If they were still in the company, they were the key members. They were the senior. They were the go-to people.
Yes, because they didn't have an employee attitude. They had an ownership attitude.
I agree.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
That's one of the reasons why I was pushing that book, The Go-Getter, is because if they don't have the go-getter attitude, they don't have the entrepreneur attitude, they're going to be mediocre people. Now, there was another question in there that somebody said. Was that Roxana? Did you have a? a question or something?
No, you mean right now? If I had another question?
Well, I thought there was something going on. There was another question that.
Well, to me, what was important is to know.
Oh, I remember. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, and it was your feeling of inferiority to somebody who had 2 master's degrees because they retired and they did all this other. That doesn't mean nothing. Okay, my wife is a prime example of somebody who is fantastic at getting certifications. Okay, but I could outproduce her any day of the week, and she'll agree to it. She's great at taking tests, but when it comes down to production, that's where the rubber hits the road. You have proved yourself on the firing line. You are able to produce. Now, let's see if she can actually produce. You don't get paid for what you know, you only get paid for what you do with what you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to go back to that. And I don't think you have anything that you have to feel inadequate on any of that. Don't let that enter into you.
Well, Sam, I observed it. I was aware of it. However, I did not like immediately go and say, hey, Lucian, you take care of this. I just was aware of it, and I thought it was interesting to see how that came up. However, I'm planning to move on with this, and I have to say that interviewing 4 people in a short period of time has actually been very helpful. It's like everything else, you get better at doing things by doing them.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Because the first person I interviewed, not this year, but last year, had another person. When I compare her now with all these people that I have interviewed, I was like, okay, she might be okay. But then when I see everything else that is on the market, I'm like, no, that is shooting myself in the foot. And actually, I spoke with this person again, and she is still not able to get her business going. And I said to her, when you have the quantity of clients that you say you want to have a good income, let's talk again. So, I raised the bar because I had spoken to all these other people, and there are great people out there.
Yeah. Now, one of the reasons why, and I've had discussions with people a number of times, especially when I was in the field, as to why they were looking for people who had degrees. And they said, well, I don't really care what the degree is in. The important thing is, were they willing to do more than the average individual to get ahead in life? Okay. And so they paid a price. They did something more than the average individual. And that was the thing that was important to them. And I took that to heart, and that's true. So she put herself out there to get those. Now, if you could show her a methodology where she could actually benefit from all the work that she's done, would she be interested? Cliff Williams. You know who Cliff Williams is?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. If you look at the LMI management programs, going back to the DOS and the DMM and all that, Cliff Williams' name was the first name, and Paul Meyer's name was underneath him, because Cliff Williams wrote the program. Okay, he wrote the management part of the program. He also is the guy who designed the DNI, is Cliff Williams' product, and the ONI is Cliff Williams. Cliff Williams was the some big mahoff down here at Baylor University, and he was a PhD in what is it, organizational psychology, whatever, something.
Yeah.
What he told me, he says, I helped Paul write the programs, but Paul taught me how to make money.
Yep.
He said he would never have achieved what he achieved in his life without Paul. Okay. So, you know, there's a good blend there. Even when I was in the field, I recruited a retired college professor. And I told him right up front, the reason why I wanted him in the organization is because of his PhD. And one day he came in, he dyed his hair, and I flipped out. I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I wanted that white hair. That's what gave you credibility." You know? And that's what I was using them for. Anytime somebody said anything to me, hey, you want a PhD? Here, I'll buy one. Here. So you're doing fine. Just do your thing, and if they are gonna be part of your organization, you just show them how to sell and be successful at LMI.
Say, Sam.
Hey, Al.
How much did a PhD cost back then?
Not as much as it costs today.
Okay, I'll have to remind myself of that when I'm on the market.
Hey, hey, Sam, this is Pete. One of the first things that I tell people when I'm interviewing for a potential associate, I tell them there's two things about this business if you go into it. The bad thing is that there's no salary and no fringe benefits. And I say the good thing is there's also no glass ceiling. You can make as much as you want. And I can tell from making that statement to them, it's not a question, it's just a statement, that by their expressions and their attitude, what kind of person I'm dealing with, whether I'm dealing with an entrepreneur or not.
Point well taken. And I remember us when people did sessions on that, when they were talking about having a framework to work within, but there's no ceiling, like most jobs have a ceiling.
And two type of ceilings, because it's a ceiling not only in terms of money, but also in growth.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, I have another question. Pete was saying, and of course I agree with that. I think it's important that a person does the program, the EPP program in this case. But is it possible for someone to do the EPP program, do the sales certification, do the facilitation certification in a period of 6 months? Isn't it too much?
Why would it be too much?
Well, I see how my clients struggle only with the EPP.
True, but your clients also have a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's coming into this business and they're supposed to be full-time, okay, and to get any business off the ground, okay, you have to look at how many hours and what you're willing to do to get it off the ground.
Well, this person has 20 hours because she already has a business. She has done leadership trainings, but she's currently also working in IT and some other stuff. And
so she has 20 hours to invest in the LMI, or 20 hours that she can't invest into LMI?
20 hours to invest in LMI.
Okay. So how can she best use that 20 hours in order to be successful at LMI?
But she would have to go through the EPP, the sales and the facilitation certification.
Okay. Now, when you say go through the EPP, are you talking about going through a class?
Going through a class, yes.
Okay. And how many hours will it take in order for per week? Because I imagine that 20 hours is per week. How many hours would it take per week in order to do that? And when she's talking about 20 hours, is she talking about daytime hours, or is she talking also about evening hours?
That's a good point. I would have to confirm. I believe it is daytime.
Right.
but I need to check that.
So for her to spend an extra hour or 2 hours an evening in study or going through or listening to a material, I mean, how much time does it really take to go through an EPP?
Yeah, and she seems to be the kind of person that, I mean, she has studied and she has a lot of experience. So, you know, when I started out, a lot of the jargon of the EPP was unknown to me, will not be unknown to her because she has all.
Correct. Yeah. So, you know, when you're looking at that, break it down, you know, as to how much time does she really have and what's she willing to do in order to be able to succeed at it. You know, I've seen people when you say, well, they'll come back and they'll say, well, how quickly could I get all this done? Well, how quickly are you willing to work on it? Well, that's totally up to them.
Roxanne, when they start going through your class, if you're considering them as an associate, you can tell about the first 3 classes whether you want them or not, and how they do the class. And it's the same thing with our clients. I can tell my clients, you know, they say, well, I'm not gonna invest in this person until I've see if I'm gonna keep them. Well, I say I can tell you in three sessions whether you should keep them or not. And
Yeah.
you can do the same thing with your associates, potential associates. You can tell within 3 just how they perform in the class. You can tell whether you really want them or not. It's a matter of, I always also, when I've hired a lot of people in another business, in another career, and I always say when I'm hiring them, there's 2 things that are happening here. I'm choosing you, and you're choosing me, and you have to evaluate me like I'm evaluating you. And if I'm not good for your career, you shouldn't be interested in this job. But I'm doing the same thing. I'm evaluating you to decide whether I want you to work with us or not. So it's a 2-way street. And you can tell when they start thinking in terms of those types of things, is this guy going to help my career or help me, or am I in the wrong place here? And it's just, to me, a lot of it is gut feelings, and all a gut feeling is experience. And you can give them all the tests you want, but when you sit down and are face to face with them, that's when you know whether you want them or not, or at least that's when I know whether I want them or not.
Oh, you just gave me an idea, Pete, because I have actually 2 ladies in St. Martin that I think are good candidates. One more than the other because one really is very busy, is doing a lot of things, and she's younger, but she also has some good qualities. So what I am going to do is have them both go through the program. As a matter of fact, I have a client of St. Martin starting in August. So I'm gonna see if I can get both of them to participate. And then based on that, I'll see how it works. Because as you were speaking, I realized that, you know, with participants is almost the same. Like yesterday, I had a resale of 2 programs with government, which currently is not investing in too many things, of this person that's just doing lesson 2. And she is such a good participant that she already has seen the benefits and she's already willing to invest in one of her colleagues.
That sounds like a good prospect.
Yeah.
You know, you just have to try to get to know people as much as you can, and there's nothing better than them going through your class. By the time you have them 8 to 9 weeks in a class, you get to know people pretty good, and especially if you're considering them as an associate, because you can schedule some time after a while, if you really get interested in them, to spend some one-on-one time with you. You know, when I was city manager, one of the most important things I did was hire a police chief, because that's a critical position in any city. And I had 4 people in one time, and we go through a process, and one kept coming to the top, kept coming to the top, kept coming to the top. But I had a gut feeling something was wrong here. So I held them all over another day and interviewed them one-on-one. And that one that kept coming to the top, he leaned over and he said, "Well, if you want the right person for this job," and he commenced to badmouth the other three. I had four of them, so that told me right away that I was right about him. Something was wrong. So you just have to be around people, because people can fool you for for a little while, but eventually their personality and their attitude finally comes out. So you have to spend a little bit of time with them.
True. I think this is a very, very important thing you have just mentioned to me, and I appreciate it because initially I wasn't sure if I would work with only one or two, but I think if I get them both to go through the program, well, if they want to work with us, then that's one of the requirements. And if they do, then I'm going to have the chance to observe how they do in the program. And then that's going to definitely help. Because I agree, I've had this thing that when I've hired people, I started to ask them to work for a period of time with me before I would decide and they would decide. And just like you said, I would tell them, I want you to work with us so you see if you really want to work with us. And I also want to see if I can really work with you. And so that has helped a lot because you don't get to know people quickly. It takes a while.
I'm just curious, is there a probationary period in Curacao?
Yes, 2 months. But in this case, that would not be applicable for associates because I will not be employing them. I will work with them as independent contractors, which is a challenge that I've already shared. I mean, it's not foolproof, but that's what I'm planning to do.
Okay. While we're all here, anybody have any feedback on this system that we're using?
And you can record and send us the recording like you've always done with GoToMeeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Sam, a lot of the meetings that I'm involved in with other organizations and clients are through this system, and I've never seen any issues with it.
Okay. Well, I've been communicating with them. The Thought Industries, who has the online learning platform, integrates with Zoom, which I thought was interesting.
What is that, Sam? Sorry, I didn't understand.
Okay, the online learning platform.
Yes.
The one that I showed at the convention. Okay,
yes.
It integrates with Zoom. In other words, they have a Zoom integration so that you can do online classes using it. Also on this system, you can share files, you can play videos, you can have breakout rooms, things that we probably would never use, but you just never know. And if they're willing to work out a decent deal, corporate deal, so that we can let the people in the field benefit from it as well, then that would be, good. So anyways, I'm just testing it out to see how it works because we may switch to this platform.
I would be interested to know, Sam, because we are currently using GoToMeeting, and there are some features that are not possible via GoToMeeting, and I understand you can use this platform also for free. Is that true?
No. Well, somebody said that there is a version of this that can be used for free, but I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
And definitely it would never be as robust as one that you're paying for. So if we can keep the price down so that it's not as astronomical for people to be paying for it, great. But if we can't get enough users, then to justify having a corporate account, then we'll just go with our own house account and let everybody find out their own. You know, I was doing it because I'm trying to get added value for the field.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Uh, you know, I have a class I'm going to do this afternoon. We'll see how that goes with this system, but it seems to be very close to what we do with GoToMeeting, but they're actually supposed to be higher rated. So we'll see.
You know, Sam, several of the people that I know that use it just use the free version. And so for most smaller, little businesses, I think their free version is pretty robust. You can do web conferencing, video conferencing. You can do all kinds of stuff with it.
I'm going to check that out, the free version.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would save us some money.
Yeah, it would. Okay.
Sam, I like to share something. I started with this idea of talking to some of our clients about having this breakfast, and so far I've spoken with 2 people, and with one person I already have a commitment of inviting 15 to 20 business owners. These are all manufacturers that are exporting. It's not, we don't have big companies here that are exporting, but some are, doing some of the exporting. And so we're gonna invite these people, these companies, to this meeting where we're gonna have them get to know LMI. And I spoke with another client, and he actually wants to meet with some of our other key clients. So we still need to determine how we're gonna get new people in this breakfast, but the idea is that some of our key clients want to actually meet to touch base on certain things, but use LMI as a way to achieve some of their projects and their goals. So it's going in the right direction.
Good. It's good to see that and to hear that kind of stuff going on. Okay. Do we have a topic for our next meeting?
Well, I have a question. Maybe if we can use these 10 minutes to talk about. I have a situation where I have I have 2 companies that have become one, and they are all over the place. We have worked with them for a while, but right now the participants that have been coming to the sessions, they keep saying this is a terrible time. Many of the participants have very high blood pressure, really, 170, 90, which is ridiculously high. A lot of them are very stressed out. And actually, it doesn't even seem like we did go through the EPP, and with some of them, even the EPL, some of the managers. And so right now, I'm not sure how to best serve the client, because they are all over the place despite having invested in LMI a lot.
Okay. And your question to the group?
How do I get the company, and I talk about management, to become aware of what is going on? I mean, the people are demotivated, stressed out. I have had at least 4 people drop out of the programs because they say they just can't do it, because in addition to our program, they're being sent to other trainings and there are new machines being installed. So I want to know from the group, how would you help a company like this that seems to be all over the place?
Suggestions?
Well, this is Pete, and all I do when you get that a lot, we're just too busy. We don't have enough time. I say that's why you need our program, because the feedback we get on our programs, that y'all get it also, is that one of the things they said when they start doing the things we ask them to do, that it's helping them manage their stress level. And so when they tell me that, there never is, if they're working, they should be busy all the time. And the busier they are, the more our programs, the more they need what we do. And if they do what we ask them to do, they will be able to deal with their extra load that they think they have. I've had CPAs companies go through our program during tax season because that's when they needed it the most. So I don't know what you do about that. I think that's just like when you're selling someone, that's just like an objection for not wanting to do the work.
Have you talked with the top management at all?
I'm going to right now because I've been waiting to see how things are progressing, and I think this is a good time because this week another person dropped out, so I need to talk to him, and also because the mentors are not responding at all. No mentor is responding to any of our communication.
Generally, when you have a scenario such as a merge or a buyout or anything of that nature, you have stress, fear of the unknown, uncertainty, all those things start creeping in. The best thing the company can do is communicate. Share the vision of the future, what it's going to mean, the benefits of the merge. Are they merging? Do you know why they're merging?
They merged because actually in the past the previous management thought that it was good to have two different companies, but now they realize that they're wasting a lot of money and resources by having two different companies. So they want to streamline and have just one company, and then they don't have to have two human resource department, two administration, it just becomes one.
Sure. And this too shall pass.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Should I go to the top? Because I have hesitated to go to the top also because I know that maybe the people are feeling the heat of the changes, and maybe I shouldn't bother him with this.
Well, that's a call. That's a call you have to make.
Mm-hmm.
I always think that the unknown. If people don't know what's going on, they can't fix it. They can't do anything with it. But it does sound like to me that they know there's something going on, but they may not be communicating properly. They may be communicating, but not properly.
Mm-hmm.
When people feel secure, they could withstand a lot of pressure. When they're not feeling secure, okay, then they feel a lot of pressure. And I would assume that these people are running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and they're not feeling really secure about their jobs.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what's happening. And also, because there is so much stress, communication is not happening really well. People are grumpy and offending people, criticizing. When people are stressed, each one reacts in a different way, and sometimes not in the best way.
Yeah, you know what a domino effect is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Domino effect can works faster, it seems, when it's negative than when it's positive.
True.
But they can do something positive to help the situation.
Okay, I will look into it and see how to go about it.
Mm-hmm. And don't think you have to solve it. You have to let them solve it. Let them figure out what they need to do that's going to be positive to fix it. You just need to help them be aware of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. Any other feedback from anybody? Lane, you're really quiet. You haven't said squat.
I'm just listening. I'm listening. I'm gaining all this good knowledge that I missed at the conference.
Okay. All right. All right. We still don't have a topic for our next meeting. Well, think about it. Let me know what you come up with, and we'll move on from there. So, all
I
right.
have a suggestion though. I'd like to listen to two people doing a win-win agreement. And I know Lisa liked the presentation that was done at the conference about determining the return on investment. But I've never seen others do a win-win agreement. So I would like to listen to two people doing that.
Okay. Well, my thought is, why don't we take a veteran like Pete and have him do a win-win on somebody? You up for it, Pete?
Well, if you think it'll be helpful, I will do my best to do that.
Okay. So now we need a victim. I mean, a volunteer.
Lisa would probably be really better at that than me, I think,
At what?
at presenting the win-win agreement to an individual.
Yeah, but I want to hear how you do it. And everybody looks up to you because you're so good at all this stuff.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm not producing as much as the rest of y'all. And
That doesn't mean you don't know how to do a good win-win. Okay. We'll have Pete do a win-win with somebody, but we're going to need to have somebody volunteer. So Roxana, do you want to volunteer?
No, I actually want to listen. I want to
listen.
observe. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Lisa, do you want to volunteer and have Pete do a win-win on you?
Sure.
All right.
Or could we have a client actually that would be willing to be in the group?
Do you have a client?
Let me look into my clients and I will get back to you. Yes.
All right. Well, if you're willing to do that, then we could work on that. So that would be in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Well, if you do give me a little information on the client, so I know the type of person I'm working with.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, group. Have a good one. We'll catch you next time.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter,
everyone. Yes. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.